Hey, this is Anthony Meisner. I came to bring you your update for Greater Metro Denver for the month of July. Here we are looking back at June's data, and we've really seen a couple of things happen that are very important. Number one, active units of inventory is up 31% from this time last year. Interestingly enough, the month over month change is actually flat, which I did not expect to see. Now, one thing that is our average sales price is actually slipped a little bit across the entire market by 0.8%. Pending numbers, though, up 4.5%. So we're still seeing a little bit more buyer behavior than we saw this time last year. Now, if we dive into active units on the market, we're at 13,000. That's a lot of inventory, but it's not astronomically high. Now, you can compare it all the way back to the pandemic. And during the pandemic, we had no inventory. So 4,000 units being about as little as we've ever seen. Now, if we look back where the last time we had 13,000 units was, though, it's been a very long time ago, maybe 2012. So this is a unique position that the metro market is in. The really interesting spot and what's creating a lot of this, what actually slipped over the last month was active or new active listings coming to market. So we had a change by about 19% month over month in new inventory coming to market. And that drop off is really what gave that slowdown in inventory enough to be flat for the month. Now, if we're listing 5,500 homes on the market and we're not selling that many of them, that's why we're seeing this large increase in active units on the market. Is it happening the same everywhere? No, there's more listings coming on market than this time last year in Adams County, Broomfield County, Douglas County, Jefferson County, and a couple of them are very relatively similar to where they were a year ago. Now, if we look at month supply of inventory, this is the number that I think is the most critical. It's basically a ratio between how many buyers and sellers there are, right? So when we look at that, we have 3.85 months of inventory. I would argue that this is not even a balanced market. This is actually probably slightly buyer favored in some of these. 4 months of inventory, according to NAR, is the beginning of a balanced market all the way through 6 months. It definitely does not feel like that or act like that from what we're seeing from buyer and seller behavior. So I would argue that this is getting to the point where buyers are more favored in the negotiations, right? We're starting to see that with a lot of, concessions across the state and that sort of thing as well. You can see that most of these counties are actually very similar. The least amount of inventory for a county being Broomfield, but the most amount of inventory being Denver County. If you look at days in MLS, this is the speed of the market, how long it takes to go under contract. We have 41 days in MLS as the average across the board. Slowest, though, being Broomfield at 57 days. Now, some places are going faster than others. Jefferson County still cruising like it was a year ago. 33 days in MLS is pretty quick. If you look at the average sold price average number of units and number of sold units on the marketplace combined, this tells a very different story. That 2 to whatever, however many million, the highest in the market, that part of the market is thriving. There are a lot of people coming to Colorado, parking a lot of capital right now, and it's very clear across the board. We had 43 solds over 3 million last month. We had 73 solds from 2 to 3 million. Those numbers are up large amounts. Now, the one part of the market that's doing just a little bit better than it was a year ago, 800 to about 2 million. So that's a good sign. And some strength in the market. You see some of the upper end stuff starting to do okay. Very, very similar behavior below 800,000 all the way to the bottom. Now, you can see that 200 to 300,000, we show a big negative number there. And I think it's largely due, there's just less units worth that in the marketplace, right? So that one's really interesting to look at, active and sold by price range. I broke down the month supply of inventory in days on market by detached and attached because they tell a very different story right now. The lower end of the market, still very, very seller favored. We just don't have a lot of inventory. So from, the very bottom up to about 600,000, even 800,000, we're below 3 months of inventory in most cases. That's really a seller favored market in some ways, right? Or at least balanced at, 6 to 800,000. Now, I would argue that we start our buyer behavior or buyer favored market at 800,000 and we start to work our way up. Once we get into those luxury price ranges, you're seeing a lot of inventory. And that means buyers are in full control of the situation. So it's very tough to be a seller, but good product still is selling fast. So if it's priced right and it's buttoned up, you can see what's happening, right? 39 days at 3+ million. And you get into some of these other submarkets, most of them are just as fast, right? Or even faster. 30 days in MLS, the best houses sell fast and everything else seems to be sitting. So very interesting to watch that. Keep in mind that June is usually the fastest month of the year. So you can really watch that as these start to rise through the rest of the year. Those month supply of inventory numbers are going to rise for a few more months as well, because we just have more sellers this time of year than buyers very consistently. If you look at it by attached, this is where it is very problematic and why you're seeing slip in the price. So when you're seeing a very competitive market, it doesn't matter what the price point is. It is absolutely a buyer favored market. I would argue that it is a buyer's market across the board, and it's taking longer to sell as well. So look at some of those numbers. We're talking 40, 50 days in MLS to get stuff under contract. And we're talking 4.5 to 7, 8 months of inventory in some of these markets. So this is a tough market to be in. If you're a seller, you need to be very aggressive with your pricing. And that does not mean list it high. It means list it lower than you think it's worth, because the market will always bear what it will bear. And unfortunately, I think this is a very tough one here. We have so much inventory that if you really intend on selling, you might not get what you're hoping for out of it. And it seems very clear that anyone buying in 2022 or 2021 may not even be getting what they paid for it. So that's a tough one. It's a tough pill to swallow. If you look at it, this average sales price, detached single family homes year over year, we're up 2.2%. Most of the submarkets have done fairly well, right? Pretty balanced approach. Jefferson, Elbert, Douglas, Denver, even Adams down 2.5%. It's very flat. It's very stable. Broomfield and Arapahoe had a pretty banner month where you saw 8% over this time last year. In Broomfield, maybe a little bit of an anomaly there, but Arapahoe County at 6% increase as well. So some counties still doing better than many others. If you look at the attached market, this is where it is really tough, right? -6% year over year. You can see that basically since 23, 22 is really rocky. And then we've seen a steady decline in value. And a lot of that is just due to inventory. Too much inventory, higher HOA fees, and taxes have been brutal. So they are getting hit from all sides, and it's happening across all markets. The only market that year over year is pretty flat was Adams County. Everything else, Arapahoe County is down 8% in sales price. Broomfield County was down 12%. Denver County down 8%. Douglas County also favoring fairly well at 2.3%, and Jefferson County down about 5% as well. So the attached market is definitely struggling, and we can see plenty of signs of it. It's going to lead over to our sales as well. But take a look at this. This is our detached solds. So the solds by month, this is always a really easy one to read. If you need something to share out with people, I always encourage this one because it's super easy to digest, right? You can see by county at the bottom. You can see how a few counties have favored extra well. Douglas, Elbert County, Jefferson County still having banner sales compared to where they were a year ago, but most counties are very, very flat. Last month was a really good month compared to the previous year. If we look at the attached market, nearly the opposite, right? We have had a very big decrease in sales across most of the counties, and it's just due to too much inventory and less buyer demand right now out there in this market. So this is a tough one, but if you have to share hard news, this slide could absolutely be a way to help tell that story. We're down almost 9% year to date in sales in the attached market. And it's not for no reason, right? They have a big uphill battle right now. Now, if we look at our percentage sold price to list price, detached single family and unattached single family are not that far apart. Now, the reason that is this data does not include price drops and it does not include concessions. So when the average home is having, a $10,000 concession between 500 and a million, and 60% of homes are having concessions, this definitely isn't telling you all the story. So dive in and keep an eye on that. The one thing I think that is worth noting when you look at this data, it's down by about 0.5% from this time last year. So the market continues to be more and more buyer favored over that period of time. And you can see it in the attached market as well. You can see it here. Similar situation, tougher market for sellers, but buyers, I think there's a great time to get in the marketplace, and no time like the present. I don't think this is going to dip for very much longer because there are definitely changes coming down the pike. It's very hard to say when interest rates will change, but there will be fuel put on this fire eventually, right? Even if we do have 6 months or a year or more of a difficult market, better to buy before all the buyers come out in the market. Don't forget, we do a cool highlight reel if you ever need some talking points. And feel free to reach out with any more information, or if you have any other requests, I'm always happy to help. For free, like and subscribe to the channel for more videos and content like this. Hope to catch you next month. Bye.